Hello, this is Theodore Reynolds, Operator Prime of MindTree Exponential. At MindTree X, we get to make up our own job titles, but we also are in the business of growing brains. As Operator Prime, it is my privilege to operate, to drive, to sit in the cockpit of our 21st century homeschool machine, a highly advanced learning machine comprised of 21 component parts. Now, I present two students at the different spectrums of the learning scale. Both of them unhappy with the mass education system, which was designed and built over 150 years ago at the start of the industrial age. An old machine, akin to the ancient and rusty old hand reapers. When you compare that to our 21st century homeschool machine, which is the combine harvester, incredibly advanced, incredibly powerful, and incredibly productive. I went through the mass education system and did well because I had the skills necessary. I was good with language and writing and reading, and that gave me a huge advantage. Ironically, thanks to those skills that helped me get good grades early on, I quickly came to learn that I wasn't really trying very hard, I wasn't being challenged. But what really turned me against the mass education system was all the seemingly meaningless structure and the time I had to spend simply dealing with the movement of other students, the coughs and flatulence of other students in the classroom. I had to deal with that. Why did I have to deal with that? That had nothing to do with my learning, and I didn't like that. Also, the standardized curriculum lacked meaning. It didn't seem to have any reason or purpose in my life. It didn't apply anywhere in my life, and that was very upsetting. On the other end, my daughter, who struggled with letters, she was crushed even harder under these forces, these same forces, put in intervention groups and given all these labels as disabled and disabled that. And it was terrible, soul-crushing to be considered disabled, although we soon understood that, in fact, it's the mass education system that is disabled. She isn't. She's fine. She just needs a different way of learning. A different learning environment that was more conducive to her learning needs. And, quite frankly, more conducive to everyone's learning needs. Now, we both loved learning, which was ironic given our experience with mass education, which is the learning institution. But what we both came to understand is that mass education is different than learning. And the only way to experience learning, its full potential, was to remove ourselves from the mass education system. And a confluence of events allowed me to go to school online for my degree, while she could come home and homeschool in a more helpful environment. And together we developed a system that was free of all the restrictions. And we found that learning was amazing fun. It could be so much fun. And more importantly, it could be enjoyable, and there's nothing that can compare to it. It's a feeling of growth. If you were to compare learning to exercise, you would see that exercise is difficult, but it fills you with so much growth and good feelings that it's so rewarding. It's a regenerative cycle. And so you exercise for the joy of it as well as the benefits. And learning is the same way. And when you take it into the 21st century, all the things that had once been such a bore are improved with technology. So reading is improved and enriched into listening to audiobooks and watching movies created on the book and having discussions and leaving reviews online. Instead of being in a small desk being lectured at, you get to lay on your couch and eat breakfast and watch Dave Pogue present one of the most entertaining and educational chemistry lessons I've ever seen. Dave Pogue is a host for Nova videos, and he has much more skill in presenting than the average teacher. Also, he has a lot of cameras on him and a script manager and all this other stuff. Anyway, his presentation is highly advanced and much more enjoyable than the average. And so we find that the first huge advantage of homeschooling is simply removing the unproductive management techniques of mass education. And to get an understanding of this, let's just take a typical, highly productive homeschool day. Thanks to no bells, because this isn't a factory. This is a greenhouse of growing brains. Anyway, since we don't have any bells, the student gets to sleep in, as does the teacher. Wake up naturally, and as you wake up, you go and you make a nice, healthy breakfast. And you don't have to go anywhere, so you're in your nice pajamas, maybe you brush your teeth, and you wash your face, and it's all relaxed. There's no rush. There's no alarm clock. That alone is something most people dream of. Now, you have a good breakfast. We can grow, or we can make a very nutritious breakfast, as opposed to a mass education system that provides breakfast very, very generously, but the breakfasts aren't always that great. Sorry, Michelle Obama. I appreciate your efforts, but it's too hard to make that much food for that many people and have the quality maintained. But at home, you can, and the student can make their own breakfast. And that's a good way to start. And as you sit to eat your breakfast, you sit at your desk, and the student puts on a good... My daughter, her routine has become to watch Crash Course, provided for free, essentially. You can donate money, but it's provided for free through YouTube, and they give the best lessons full. These two brothers, John Green and his brother, they give the best lessons on all kinds of different subjects. History is how we started. It was very funny. John Green, he made her laugh, made history fun, and they were short, 15 minutes. Easy warm-up for a breakfast lesson. After eating, the student puts the dishes away, still wearing a robe and pajamas, pulls out a little card, makes what we call a synopsis card, which is just a simple one-concept summary from the lesson. And the videos from Crash Course are about 10 to 15 minutes, and they generally present one concept. And so the student will summarize that one concept. A nice, relatively easy lesson to start the day. After that, the student gets to take a break. And this means generally she can go play a video game. And we can discuss video games later, but the main idea is that she enjoys video games. And in this case, the video game is a reward for having done a nice piece of work. And it's a short little break, but she gets to check in on her video game worlds and make sure everything's being productive. And then we meet back, and our brains are a little more warmed up, and we go into maybe a higher level lesson. Perhaps in our case, at this time of year in October, we do what's called Boxtoberfest, which is an art making project where we cut up box art, pieces of box, and we create different objects. Last year, for the first year, she created a big old castle and a kingdom, and this year she's creating a big ship, and it's all out of glue and box with a box cutter. And she'll listen to music while she does that, or maybe an audiobook. But after a good hour of that, it may be time for lunch. So we have another good lunch, and the same thing applies. Good lunch. And after a lunch, a big heavy lunch in mid-afternoon, well, we could nap, because that's one of the normal biorhythm cycles of a human body, especially a growing human body. It's learning is tiring, and it's good to eat and have a nice little nap at lunchtime. So we get a nice nap in. To wake up, again, no alarms. You just wake up naturally, fall asleep naturally. Upon waking, we try and do some exercise to get the blood flowing and to wake up. And exercise is good for learning, of course. And while we're exercising, we either take a walk maybe, or we have an elliptical machine and some other equipment downstairs. The student and teacher get to listen to audio, or audio is generally the thing, either an audiobook or music. Get the energy level up, get the mind warmed up again. And after that, we hit Khan Academy, which is generally our highest level work with its math program. And we dive really into that deep and really go at trying to figure out these puzzles and growing our puzzle breaking skills as we consider math to be. It's an exercise in puzzle breaking and growing your brain's ability to break puzzles. So we go at that, and generally as we finish that up, it's time for dinner, and you have a big dinner, and then as a family we can sit and watch a movie that we've gotten from the library. Maybe it can be a movie from the audiobook that you're listening to. So another thing we do with Boxtobering when we do the art program is we watch Harry Potter, and we maybe listen to the audiobooks. And so we can watch those movies and enjoy them while we eat dinner, and it supports the audiobook literacy that we've been practicing earlier in the day. After that, you can take a nice break and just kind of relax and play some games, and everybody does their own thing, relax. And we come back and we do some writing. And again, since we haven't been up from early and we took a nap, it may be late in the night, but we're still going strong. And so this writing session is again a very high level session. And upon finishing it, it's pretty tired. You're pretty tired by the end of the day, having done all this great high level cognitive work. So maybe you grab a snack and then go to sleep. And you've had this full day. And you can go to sleep and you can stay up, or you can listen to some audiobooking or whatever, but you get to go to sleep naturally, and you don't have to worry about, oh man, I need to fall asleep, because guess what? Tomorrow's the same. There's no alarm clock waking you up tomorrow either. So that closes the day. A nice, relaxing drift into sleep. And you can be happy. You can feel productive, non-rush. There's no rush. We have plenty of time. And you did 4 to 5 hours of very deep, intense work. And not once was a bell rung. Thus, one of the best things about homeschool is simply that you find learning can be done without any forced motivation. It can be enjoyable, and in fact is very enjoyable. And that makes you more productive all around. But then you equip that freedom of choice and freedom of time and flexibility of time. You equip that freedom with 21st tech, 21st century technology. So as I mentioned, audiobooks play a big part. And our student has the iPhone, which allows for downloads and now Bluetooth headphones. It's just makes her more productive at listening to audiobooks, which is amazing. And so this 21st tech improves something that was already an improvement. And that's where this concept of exponential comes from. You could consider a pencil versus a word processor to be another example of this. And in this addition of technology, it helps both ends of the spectrum of students. So you have the highly advanced student who is held back by the slowness of a pencil. He can't get his ideas down fast enough. And you have the student who may have fine motor dexterity troubles or problems with spelling, for example, through dyslexia, that makes writing with a pencil extremely and disproportionately difficult. In both cases, the additional technology of a word processor increases productivity exponentially. So to sum up, homeschooling has many advantages. The first that you may find is that you get a whole level of flexibility, and that increases productivity in itself. The mass education system is antiquated and actually stunts learning, even as it tries to increase learning. Homeschooling frees you to learn naturally, which the brain wants to do. Adding technology only takes advantage of that instinct. These two advantages together take you from the 1850s, when mass education was invented at the beginning of the industrial age, and it places you in the 21st century. And this leads to MindTree's most favored analogy, which is comparing the mass education system to a bicycle that was built in the 1850s with the big giant wheel and the steel and the heavy and the unadjustable seats. And it expects every student to ride this giant monstrosity. While MindTree's 21 component 21st century system is much more like an advanced 21st century bicycle. And in this case, it's even more advanced than the typical aluminum bicycle you would get with the gears and the kickstand and the nice seat. It's much more advanced than that. It's the eggshell that removes wind resistance. It's the reclined seat, which further reduces wind resistance. And this bicycle, because of all these advanced techniques with the carbon fiber light frame, means that the same pedal, the same effort put into those pedals produces extremely different outputs. And you could race those two bicycles, and you could put Lance Armstrong, doped to the gills on steroids, on that 1850s bicycle, and you could put him up against some average person in the 21st century bicycle, and it won't even be a race. It won't even be a match. And so if you're considering homeschooling, just know that it's not even close. It's not even close. It's just that much more advanced. It's not even a competition, in the same way that some farmer from the 1850s operating a team of people wielding McCormick Reapers cannot compete with a 21st century combine harvester. They're not even in the same class. That's what homeschool can do for you. It's done it for us. So join us in the next episode as we begin the process of explaining component by component all the pieces you need to construct your own highly advanced 21st century homeschool machine.